episode number 186 of the Wholesome Fertility Podcast. My guest today is Kelly Meehan. Kelly is a healing visionary, published author, birth advocate, and a holistic earth mother to her sons, Rain and Little Forest. She calls herself a spirit baby medium, which is a title she created, and with that she shares messages from the spirit of a child before life and afterlife. She uses her extrasensory awareness of clairvoyance and clairsentience, unique perceptions, and clinical psychological training to support the hearts of people all around the world that are looking to connect in a deeply spiritual and awakened way. Her loving services focus on spirit baby communication in conception, energetic fertility healing, medical intuition, pre-birth connection in pregnancy, and sacred grief support in all areas of birth loss, such as miscarriage, stillbirth, and termination. Kelly understands how to listen to the unseen and deeply felt world of the spirit baby and more. Kelly is the host and creator of Spirit Baby with over 135 episodes. She has been in the media on birth-related and spiritual topics and radio shows as a guest expert, being invited and attending over 20 online global summits with topics such as fertility, pregnancy, grief, and spirituality. She has been featured in blogs, magazines, and articles, and she has been on a TV show, Nighttime Prime, Nick Moms, sharing her work. Welcome to the Wholesome Fertility Podcast. I'm Michelle, a fertility acupuncturist here to provide you with resources on how to create a wholesome approach to your fertility journey. So welcome to the podcast, Kelly.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to have you here. We've been corresponding for a while, and I'm so thrilled that you're finally able to get here. I know so many people are intrigued by the subject of spirit babies, including my patients that I see in person, people that I speak to online. People are just really, really intrigued by it. And I think it's a knowing. We were just talking in the pre-talk about how we all have some kind of knowing, and it's about claiming it. So first and foremost, I would love for you to introduce yourself and also tell us a little bit about how you figured out you had this calling.
Yeah, so I call myself a spirit baby medium, a medical intuitive and mentor. And I always get this question from time to time, and I always have this one thought in my head, this one time. I mean, there's so many experiences as intuitives, right, that we have with connecting between worlds, with baby energies. And I've always been able to connect energetically, clairvoyantly, clairsentiently, claircognizantly, you name the clair, I've been there. And that was very young. I discovered that at 15 years old. Something was a little different with me.
That's
And
amazing.
yeah, I had, this could sound positive or negative. I had parents that were so self-involved in their own healing of trauma that they didn't notice that part of me.
Yeah.
They probably did, but not really. So what the positive and negative is of that is that it allowed me to explore it more. There was nobody telling me I couldn't.
Yeah.
Or, because there was no micromanaging of me. It was more of their own process. And so, years and years later, come down the line, trainings in healing and energy. And I remember one time when I started doing hands-on energy awareness work, and I said to the practitioners, I said, when I put my hands on people, I see things. Is that normal? And they're like,
Your
I
hands
was, what
have
do I
eyes.
do? I was like, what do I do with that? And they're like, it's okay to tell the people. I was like, okay, because it was so overwhelming to me. And then I realized I didn't have to use my hands. I could just hear a voice, or I could just know where the energy is. And then so this one story that I've shared before with baby communication was with a classmate in my graduate program. We were all in a park, all of us, and she was pregnant, and we're all just giving her love and hands-on healing. And I remember saying, and it came back later, it was quite fascinating. And I said, are you having a boy and a girl? And she's like, no, she felt like she was having one baby boy. I was like, okay. And then I was like, oh, this baby's going to heal some part of her bones or something, which I was like, I'm just going to say it. I was like, I'm just going to say it. And then we're all there, and then months go down the line, and then everybody's texting, hey, do you know that, this mom, like our friend, she's gone into labor and she has a home birth, and she gave birth to two children, a boy and a girl.
Wow.
And then I was like, whoa. And then and then I've totally forgotten. They're like, hey, Kelly, everyone's texting me. Did you remember what you said? And I said, yeah, but I trusted her. She said no. When I saw that, I was like, I don't know. And for me, it made me realize at that moment the energy of babies and how they communicate to me and what they looked like. And I remember, and again, people would say, well, how did she not know she was having twins? Well, she did a home birth and she didn't want to do intervention. And this was probably like 15 years ago now. She didn't want to do all that. And so when she was fine and safe and it was good, her mother was a doctor, which was awesome. And then her sister loved midwifery. So she had a really good team of people. But it was interesting to me is that she gave birth to the boy first and then the girl. And sometimes there's a dominant energy that people feel. So that makes sense. So that was the real big like piece. But then there's all these pieces in between of connections and communications. And I always feel like that was one of the many earlier when I wasn't even doing the work yet. I was getting information already, but I didn't fully step into it. Or like we said, claim it. I didn't claim it. I
Yeah.
didn't really know what it was. Like a lot of people, it's like, what is this? We're not taught that. And
No.
so, yeah.
Yeah, we're not. And it's hard to recognize what it is because it sounds almost like your thoughts. So you might just dismiss it as just like, oh, that's just a thought. It's not like anything real. And over time, for me at least, when I started to meditate and I started to kind of like hone in on that inner terrain, I noticed the difference between a thought and an intuitive hit.
What I teach a lot around that is that imagination, thoughts, dream world, there's very thin lines between those awarenesses
Hmm.
because I thought I was making everything up, to be honest. And then then
Right,
like,
right. Because that's
that's
what
what,
it feels
yeah,
like.
yeah. And there is a, like you said, like a meditation, a mental kind of training of going, okay, what if I'm so psychically colorful and multidimensional and I've been taught to avoid that, right? And
Hmm.
so, but it's a natural part of our awareness to be intuitive, to have that psychic awareness to different degrees and levels. And
Hmm.
again, we can either embrace it or resist it. But I
Yeah.
have to say, people that resist it, you create anxieties and depressions and things
Hmm.
because it's not your core and your true essence is that. It wants that. It's like it's love for yourself.
Yeah, totally. And I always call it kind of like the voice of the heart versus the voice of the cynic. There's always that
Oh, I
cynic
like
that'll
that.
come in,
Yeah.
right? And the cynic will try to dismiss it. It's like a child that says, "Oh, I saw something, I felt something," and they're like, "Ah, that's just your imagination." It's kind of like this dismissiveness of anything that has anything different than what we can feel, sense, or taste.
Mm. Or, I like the way you said that, the cynic and the love. And I always tell people, your intuition is not going to argue with you. Your intuition is not like, well, maybe we'll do this, maybe we'll do that. Oh, you should do this. That was like that. You already know it's not your intuition anymore.
Hmm.
Intuition doesn't have to prove anything to you. It's just an instinctual connection and it's there and then it's not there or whatever it is. And we do get to kind of train ourselves, I feel like, to go, oh, can I just be intuitive? And sometimes I notice even in my reality, of course, I consider myself, normally highly intuitive every day in my life, no matter what I'm doing. And I see it when I'm driving somewhere, I'm going to the store, how I'm reacting to the world. There's like almost an underlying part of me that is just knows. And I don't
Hmm.
have to know all the baggage around it. That's where people get caught up. But you
Yeah.
see it later sometimes. If you're like, let's say you're driving and you hesitate and you're like, and then all of a sudden something happens, right? And then you're like, oh, that's interesting. I don't know why I hesitated. It's like those
Yes,
things we want to pay attention to because
totally.
I feel like most human beings, we're in almost weird situations. I'm sure we all have a list of like, ooh, this could have gone really wrong, but why didn't it?
Yeah.
Because there's that other internal satellite, that beacon. And I do feel like we can't capture it so much with our thoughts, but we have to be like a passive observer of it, right? It's like, oh, even in conception and pregnancy, but there is a training, for
Hmm.
sure, because we are so in our way, as you know.
Yeah, totally. And sometimes I find also the trusting aspect of it when people are going through any challenges, and of course the fertility challenge, but it could be any challenge really, where we want to know, we just want to know, and we don't like the unknown. We don't like that feeling of just like we don't know where this is going to lead us. And that causes like a distrust in the process. And sometimes we just won't know until we get there.
Yes. And like you said, it's a trust. We have to then trust who we are. What does our self-care look like? What does our internal core look like? Who are we? And can we bring love and beauty to that? It's like instead of living on the edge of the, oh my gosh, the unknown is scary, or there's anxiousness, or I don't know who I am, or all these things. And it's like the more we get the core of like that I'm here, I'm safe in my body, like who am I in this love space, and just growing from that, I feel like. And I say self-care because I feel like our self-care is so dwindling in our cultures, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
And
totally.
and it's not just like, oh, I got my nails done, in the past 7 days. Like that's not enough. Like that's beautiful and great, but it's like what about an everyday practice, even throughout the day?
Hmm.
Because everyone's in such a different space. If you're a highly sensitive person, you need a lot of, self-care without judgment of it. I feel like our nervous systems take in a lot of information, and
Hmm.
and then how do you not become cuckoo about it? It's like,
Totally.
coming down and centering and finding that space. But yeah, intuition is like everything. I feel like it's our foundation, it's our compass, and everybody has it, but of course, to different degrees of what the permission is to be in relationship with it. Because we do hear things with people, oh,
Hmm.
they just have bad luck, and I'm like, well, I don't believe in bad luck, but
Hmm.
what's the awareness? Like that's not happening.
Right. And we were talking about claiming, claiming also our power because a lot of times things happen repeatedly, not just because. I mean,
Yeah.
there's some kind of pattern. And when I personally, in my own life, reached the point where I really took responsibility just for myself, it was like as if at first it was like my ego resisted it so much because I just really wanted to blame my parents. But it's like, but I finally just took my own responsibility. Once I did that, I felt like I claimed my own power.
Mm,
That's when I started to really think about what kind of thoughts I was having throughout the day and like what my feelings were about certain things and really kind of taking my own inventory or just that sounds almost like negative, but just observing myself
yeah.
and really seeing like what am I contributing and what's going on here and what it is I think that we just really don't realize just how powerful we are as humans.
Yes. And even, something you said, it just felt like I know I like the word claiming. We're using the word claiming. It's, blaming too. Like when you said that, I was like, oh man, I
From
love blaming.
blaming to
I
claiming.
love blaming my parents
Yeah, exactly.
for all their stuff. But again, I hear what you're saying, and I know claiming to blaming, that's the good one.
Right.
It's just, the acknowledgement that those all parts of us are here. It doesn't have to be, this is what I really feel is strong in this kind of spiritual, whatever you want to call new age metaphysics space. It's almost a lacking of like we're not allowed to have fear, or we're not allowed to be shadowy, and we can be, and we could still be whole inside the shadow. That's where people get like, wait, I have to be positive, I have to be positive. And I tell women especially, you can conceive and not be positive.
Yeah,
Like you
it's
you
true.
can actually do that, and I've seen it happen
Yeah.
many, many times. I go, don't feel like, because then you're pushing against inauthenticity, and of course no one wants to feel crappy, no one
Hmm.
wants to feel negative, but it happens, and we have to like really, hold space for our own negativity at times, and process it, however, in a most, pure and loving way.
Hmm. Totally. And actually sitting with it, that's what meditation does, kind of getting into this neutrality and allowing whatever it is to come through. And so, as far as spirit babies, how far into like the distant future do you see? Do you see them like right before, or how do you see spirit babies in relation to people? And what
Yeah.
messages have you gotten? I know that's two questions, but we can start with just
Yeah.
like
Well,
what you
yeah.
perceive.
So I perceive in my way. And what I mean by that is I've learned this kind of method and way that works for me. Um, and so I'm a feeler. I call myself a physical empath because I feel things very strongly and they're very accurate. And that's why I do medical intuitive work too. I was like, oh, I could just see into people's bodies. Let me just do this. And so I connect with that in many different levels. And so when I'm feeling, I put feeling into vision too. And so my visual space is very strong and very clear. And so when I see a child in a session or children, they come to me as more children. I don't see a tiny little baby. Some people see, lights and different things. And so how I do it is I see a child between the ages of 5 and 7, boy, girl, sometimes an unknown gender. And typically they will show me what their clothes are. And their clothes is what I call a soul personality because
Hmm.
they're not really wearing clothes, but it's a way to reference to their personality. Like if they're coming with glittery clothes or they're coming with a hat and corduroys, like they're just showing me this is my personality. And we're always, like, when I say we, me and the person I'm connecting with in this earth body, we're always very accurate, which is really fun because then they'll be pregnant or have the baby and they're like, oh my gosh, this is totally their personality. And most mothers especially, they know their child's energy and personality before anyways. That's very, very common. And
Hmm.
not to shame people if they feel like, oh my God, I don't. You do. You freaking do. Stop it. You just do. Like, just let it go and it's fine. And so I see them as children. And sometimes some children I see, like, if they come into my face, which is a very different connection, when they show me their eyes and their hair, sometimes it is what they will look like. Not, I don't always get that with everybody. It's not like, oh, you could come to Kelly and she's gonna, see the curly haired kid with the blue eyes. Like, it does not work that way. It's very in the moment with the soul energy of the other person. And so, and the other question you had was, what was the other one about messages? Oh
Messages,
gosh.
yeah.
So a lot of people I see currently, I do see pregnancy, but I'm seeing a lot of conception, miscarriage and conception, loss to conception, and there's so many funny different. I say funny because sometimes they share things with me, and I'm like, I don't know what this means, and I'm a messenger, and it could be as simple as one time there was this woman in conception. She's going through IVF, and I didn't get to. Some people come and go in my relationship. Some people stick around and do the deeper work. And so this woman, I don't know like where she's at now, but I'm pretty sure she was pregnant because this baby was telling me things about her house. Like,
Hmm.
why is this baby? And people are like, I think, like, why are you telling me about like the vases in the house or this one particular story? This woman on the other side of the world, the baby was showing me bubbles on a carpet. And
Hmm.
I'm like, the baby's showing me all these bubbles on a carpet. I'm like, is this a metaphor? Is this a symbol for something? Or is it literal? It was actually literal. She's like, oh, right now the carpet cleaners are here and they're scrubbing the floor. I was
Oh
like,
my
okay,
God, wow.
so we're going literal right now. And this is where
Yeah.
I'm always a little like, is this literal? And I'm still like kind of trying to listen because energy is energy. So some energies are prophetic, like you were asking, like I could see a timeline is what I call it. But if people come to me and I'm not a fortune teller, if someone's like, oh, am I going to have a baby? I go, you have possibility and potential, right?
Hmm.
Because timelines are changing so rapidly. We're so parallel to different timelines of energy. And this realization literally just came to me days ago, like
Hmm.
maybe a week or two ago, because my reality is changing.
Hmm.
And so I've seen women where it was like, oh, I'm like, this woman, like, she's going to be pregnant. And then she goes on this vacation of this particular person. And I'm like, that baby's going to come. I didn't tell her through the vacation, but I was like, oh, this energy's coming. Then on the vacation, she felt so stressed out that she didn't even have sex. So
Hmm.
then she changed that timeline. It was like, I can't be like, oh, your baby's here, but now you just missed whatever that issue is with you to be present and to want to be intimate was missed. And again, we didn't go into the blame or guilt on it, but I saw that on the outside, really observing it, going, oh, this is interesting. And I've had like some of my, like, when someone's working with me more continuously, as you know their energy field, you know their consciousness. And so a lot of those women, I will see them, they do become pregnant. And there's a few times recently I was like, here's my disclaimer. I say, you're either pregnant now or within the next 3 months, I say, because there's the energy is very, very strong of light is what it looks like to me, or in their auric field, like their light body, their sacral. And sometimes the baby says it. I have two different conversations happening over here. It's like I can sense into the body of the energy of the person, and then the baby has a different language. And so I'm kind of going back and forth between that. And so, yeah, just recently that happened, and I was like, oh, there's light, there's something there. And then I got 2 emails saying, oh my gosh, I had a positive test. It was 2 women recently, and they're freaking out because they had loss. So it's hard for them to even hold that and see what happens, because we have to just wait it out.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the piece. It's like, oh my gosh, you just have to wait it out and be in that space of trust. And it's such a powerful lesson, I feel like, for our own consciousness, that we need things so rapidly. I got to go run, get the test. I got to go.
We've been
Amazon could come in 24 hours.
It's like, you know, it's
yes.
like, because we've been conditioned, marketed, like quick fixes.
Yeah.
And it really retrained our brain to be really against nature, because nature doesn't hurry.
Yes.
It just doesn't.
I love
like,
that.
You want to try to make it, but it won't.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah, you're right. Nature, this is a really good point. It's like, let's amplify that. It's like nature doesn't hurry. And then when women are in pregnancy, it's always that, yeah. I remember when I was pregnant with my second son, or both my children, I was like, I don't do any intervention, which I know freaks people out. I really wait to like, really, do I really need it? Do I need to go look? What do I really need? And what is it for? I was like, is something actually wrong, or is my mental energy just so controlled? And it's a lot harder if you're doing IVF intervention, or if you've had multiple loss. I totally have compassion for that you may feel like, oh, you need to go and look, and that's fine, but we have to watch that too, of going, am I obsessive? And because it's so rewarding when you can really trust your intuition, because what you're doing is you're building, I feel like, a frequency of more intuitive awareness and trust with that. And that's a really big deal. And that can come in conception and pregnancy, but the individual has to listen and be in relationship with it.
Yeah, totally. And as I'm just noticing, and maybe I'm noticing it because I'm in the field, but it seems like, well, we kind of know this because of the numbers, that infertility, and I don't really like using the I word, but I'm using it just to kind of like, make the point, is on such a high rise. Like, it feels like it's more than it's ever been. And I'm wondering if you are getting any information about why that is.
Well, I don't know if it's more than what it's been. I feel like people are talking about it. 50 years ago, if you were infertile, you were just infertile. There was no intervention, there was nothing, there was no interest. Maybe more than 50 years ago. I think even IVF, is it hit 30 or 40 years now that it's been available? It's very recent. And so that's where I go into it too. I just think that we have a higher technology, and that we're able to kind of go in and do things. Look at with IVF, and I mean, they can go and inject the sperm into the ovum now. Like, what is that? Like, that seems so like, whoa.
Yeah.
You couldn't do that a long time ago. But of course, our environment and the consciousness of energy more than anything does play in the future of conception. And I won't go there too much, because it may make people, you may not want to hear what I have to say in that. And so we'll save that for some other, but, wherever you're at, of course. So that's my perception of it, really.
Yeah, although I do kind of want you to go there if you want, if you're comfortable with it, just because
I just don't think they'll really understand what it means, to be honest. We could talk about that later. Sorry, people.
Yeah.
But it's just, yeah. But again, I don't want to create this bleak timeline either. I think that people are going to create, like you said, nature wants to create, and we want to create. And sometimes people do need a little support, and some people do too much support, and that's where it always gets a little icky and tricky, right? But this is why we have the holistic medicines that are just so incredible for conception, really using like the nature, and it's probably a lot of what you do, right? And using, listening to the beat of each individual person and their own rhythm, their relationship to co-create with life.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when I see people, it's really an energetic attunement that I typically see, that the body actually is ready to
Mm,
roll. It's ready to heal itself and do what it needs, but it needs certain things removed and tuned. And
mm,
once it has that, it gets happy. It's in its natural like comfort to heal itself. And sometimes it's just a couple of like little tune-ups, a couple of changes that the body's been asking for, craving.
mm,
So it's usually very simple, but it tunes, when I think about a tune up, it's not just a physical tune up, it's like energetic as well, which
mhm,
coexists. I mean, it's all part of the same thing. And it's also a mental, emotional, spiritual tune up where people start to feel more aligned within themselves. And I do feel like that creates an opening for more life to occur. It creates an opening for their own bodies to have more vitality. So sometimes I kind of see that alignment happening, and I'm wondering if you see that too, this like alignment, but also alignment with that specific particular soul that wants to come through.
well, I feel like people have a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And they have a lot of stuff, and I kind of, yeah, I agree with what you're saying, and that everybody's own internal world and their external world is so different, and sometimes there's ancestral lineage things and current life things, and I do feel like I like this connection of like we're basically whole and we're so full of light. But what happens when we get so distorted by reality, or we get so distorted by our past, or our past? It's like I feel like we tap into other timelines that are not congruent with where we are, but we don't know it sometimes. We don't like get it, like it's not coming together. And I feel like when there's a struggle with conception or pregnancy, I feel like it's really just you're shifting into alignment to awaken to something, right? Because these
Hmm.
little beings, and like you even shared, even I would say these beings are in different frequencies, and sometimes the frequencies aren't on the same bandwidth, we'll say, as their parents at that moment. And this
Hmm.
is where parents will go, well, how do I get on that bandwidth? I go, what, do your inner work around it, sit with yourself, be in the quiet, like conceive from that place, and let
Hmm.
your body see how it wants to receive that conception. And we're doing it so backwards in our world. We're so physical, and we're all victims to that. It's like, well, we got to go in and we got to like do this physical thing, but it's like, but if the energy isn't aligned, it doesn't matter.
Hmm.
You can do a million IVFs, and it's, why isn't it working? It's like, because it's just not physical. And that, I know that's so
Yeah, yeah.
discouraging to some people, but you've seen it. And
Yes.
it's like, let's get where you're, and I've seen women like, okay, I'm hunkering down, I'm going to go in my body, I'm going to listen, I'm going to find my own frequency, even though I may not even know what the hell I'm talking about. And I'm like, good, that you're get onto something, because
Hmm.
your left brain doesn't have to know everything.
Right.
You just have to be
You don't have to
present
figure
to,
everything out.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Oh,
And I
big
get it.
time.
I want to do that too sometimes. I get like, with my issues and ailments, I got to figure it out. And I'm like, gosh, like what have we been conditioned into?
Oh,
You know?
totally. And you know what? It's like a labyrinth. You'll never come out of
Yes,
it. When you're coming through the mind, will just keep
yes,
coming up with new
yes,
challenges
right?
and contradictions, and you're just never gonna like it's just gonna keep you there
It
trapped.
reminds me when you said that, this woman said to me, well, is the baby not coming because they want to be a boy or girl? And I'm like, let's demystify that. It doesn't matter. Now, what's your excuse? And her labyrinth was like finding another excuse. And I was like, there we go. And that's what I like to do for people too. It's like, let's take these surfacey things of going, oh, my baby's not coming because they want to be a boy and a girl. I'm like, what does that even mean? Like, is that
Mhm.
like, did that conjure your own psyche? Did somebody tell you that? I go, that feels like so minimal. It feels like a surface thing. It's like, just kind of eliminate that. Like, let's see if you can move into a space that's different.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. A lot of times I suggest, because sometimes when we are going through some kind of emotion, it keeps us, if we stay in that mind, in that story, it just keeps us trapped there. But our minds want to fix it from the mind, and the mind's already in that
Yeah.
state. So you're just not,
Yeah.
it's not going to work. So I always suggest get into your breath, get into your body, forget the
Mm,
story, forget the narrative, just focus on your feeling and just sit
yeah.
with it and not even focus, not even get into it, but just watch it. And just that observation kind of connects you to that spaciousness, that like, consciousness that really it's an intelligent energy. Your awareness is an intelligent energy. It doesn't just sit there and watch. It
Yeah.
actually does something when it watches. That's one of the things that I've just noticed. It starts
Yeah.
to dissipate and clear blocks.
And then you can even take what you just said and put it on a nervous system perspective, right? It's like being with the body and listening and it's really hard for a lot of people, as you know. I
Yeah.
remember I had this woman and she was just like, just dumbfounded of like, I don't get it. And literally, I don't get it. And it's like, whoa. And I was like, it's easy for some people and hard for other people, but that embodiment piece is important. It's like, and what I call is necking up. Are you living necking up? Or
Right.
like
Oh, I like
what's
that.
below? Yeah, neck
I
stop
like
living
that.
necking up. We all
Yeah.
like walking around with these freaking heads, right?
I like that. That's so
But it's like
good.
going my body is so loud. And
Yeah.
I realized that, and I'm like, gosh, it just brings me in probably a little too much, we'll say. And what I mean by too much is when I feel pains and things, they're so like, right there. And so, but it is a practice, and that's why I study the somatic work, and that's why I really love it, because it's every day. Like, it's not like, oh, I'm gonna go do I'm gonna go run around the neighborhood and have a good jog, or maybe I'll be tired, or maybe I'll be more, but when you're going into embodiment work, you don't know what you're getting.
Yeah, it's
It's like
true.
a surprise.
Yeah,
You're like,
totally.
oh, what's that weird little thing there? Or, oh, that feels good. Or I had no idea.
Yep.
And so yeah, the embodiment piece is huge for world culture, right? It's like all these elements and issues, and we just need to be more embodied in a really loving way. Not like, oh, you have to do it or you're not good enough. It's like
Yeah.
I feel like when we sit with the breath and just being with the body, it's like you've already entered the space of embodiment. Good
Yeah.
job.
Oh, it's like instantaneous.
Yeah.
It's not something that you have to figure out.
Yeah. Let me think about it before I do it. And
Right.
so a lot of my
There's another
ladies
trap.
from in my programs, I teach a lot of orienting, it's called, and it's not my term, it's a somatic term. And I learned it from somebody specifically who does nervous system work. And it literally takes you like 2 minutes. And
Hmm.
these people are like, these ladies are like, oh my gosh, like, can I do this? And I'm like, see, you don't have to sit in meditation for hours. I go, if
Uh-huh.
you can be embodied, you're going to meditate better. So I said, orienting, you're just kind of noticing where your environment, where you are, and connecting to your body in a certain way. And you could do it throughout the day. I tell my ladies, do it throughout the day,
Hmm.
and, and connect with nature. Like we talk about nature, connecting with life outside of you, because you are in co-creation with something.
Hmm.
Let nature remind you of that as I'm looking out in the tree that
Yeah,
next to my
yeah,
window.
totally.
But that like, we were saying earlier, the mental program is like, I always think of Amazon. Like, where I live, there's the Amazon warehouses are here. So they're like, do you want it today? I'm like, what? I can get a package today if
Yeah,
I order it early enough, which is like insane. I
yeah.
remember, but I'm older, so I remember back in the day, you'd have to wait 2 or 3 weeks for your package to
Hmm.
arrive. It
I
felt,
remember those
yeah,
days.
I remember that. And then now it's like, along with payphones. No,
Yeah,
but
I remember those too, as
yeah, and
quarters.
so I think we're probably the same age. And so now I'm like, oh my gosh, like we said, instant gratification. It's got to be
Hmm.
instant. Where's my baby? They've got to be here right this very second. And it's
Yeah.
like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like, let's back it up. Like, what's the frequency of you? If you're in partnership, where is baby? What do they want to come into as
Oh,
well? And
yeah.
can you
Yeah.
drop into that?
It's such a dance. And that's something that people forget. It's a dance. It's you, your partner, and the soul of the child. It's
Yes.
not just one person dictating this is how it's going to go. And it's the bottom line. I know people don't want to hear it, but it's just the reality.
It's true. And I tell people, yes, the womb holder, the woman, the person, they're the one that's going to feel the physical, the emotional, the spiritual up leveling so much more, especially if, let's say you're in partnership and your partner's not pregnant, but you are doing more work. You are going to experience a deeper sense of loss. Your partner will too, but it's different because you're literally embodying it. But I always feel like you're strong for it. You're a creative force.
Hmm.
And you can't get too caught up in that, because I know women who have multiple miscarriages and they
Hmm.
keep doing it, right? So there's some power, there's some strength and energy in that. And then, some of these women do go on and they do get to have one child and even maybe multiple children later. But it's like
Hmm.
that struggle is like, oh my gosh, it's intense. It's like, it's death, really, because
Yeah,
that's what it is.
it is.
It's an embodiment of death and life. And I tell women that, and that's really what I push. which I wish more of our culture would look at, right?
Yeah.
Because you're literally birthing life and death inside you, and that's the capacity that the womb has. But
Mm-hmm.
it's like not really, it's not held and honored in that way, that, and it's not, ignoring that there's grief and feelings, but it's
Mm-hmm.
important. When I see an energy field that has active grief in it, well, we're talking about it probably the whole session.
Yeah.
But if it's like, and I always feel grief to me is very important. I feel like as long as it's met, it's fine. But if it's not met and suppressed, it becomes clinicalized, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anxieties, depressions, PTSD.
Yeah.
And so if it's met, but again, I got to blame the culture on that one. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, death phobic cultures, developed cultures where unless we have traditions and more close connections of like passing on the awareness that the death space is here. It's not this far away tragic thing, even though it feels horrible. I'm not going to, again, I'm feel good and it brings up so much. But what do we do with that then? Is what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying in the present. It's like to be with it and to let it have space,
Yes.
you know.
Totally.
I wish they
Totally.
would teach that to kids in school, right? Life skills classes.
Oh, there's
Teach
so
them
many
about
things I wish
death.
they could teach them.
Yeah, teach them about death in high school. Like death, like, instead of like, because some parents can't get there and some people have their own traumas around it, right? We
Mm-hmm.
always think death and trauma, like, and death is not supposed to be trauma, but it is. It just is now. We can't, there's nothing we can do, but we have to go on an internal journey with it to see that if the death space is here within us right now, it's not what we think it is. It's
Mm-hmm.
a part of life. It's
It
something we
is.
all share in.
I know.
Or,
It's a guaranteed
yeah,
for all of us.
yeah. And that's okay. We have to go, okay, it's, whatever feelings come up around that. And I also think it's great. People should study death midwifery. That should be a given. Like every person. And then they would go, whoa, okay.
Wow.
Talk about triggers and pushing edges and boundaries. It's like, okay, but it's okay. You don't have to have the answers either.
Right.
You don't.
And I don't think we're
Yeah.
supposed to really
No,
in this lifetime. I think it's part of the whole
it's
lesson in
okay.
the school of
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
And when you do see people go through multiple miscarriages, I'm sure obviously every single person's story is so different and every single
Yes.
spirit baby is different. What are some of the things or maybe memorable experiences that you've had messages from the babies for the parents?
So I miscarriage is a little different. It's a different energy. But I'm gonna get a little like intense here for a second. Um, I have a monthly group that got created on its own. You can't go to my website and go, I'm gonna join this group. I have this bereavement group, and these women have been through really deeply traumatizing experiences, losing their infant right right before birth or after birth.
Mm-hmm.
And the connection with that being, and a lot of them I've already worked with when they come and they're looking to conceive again, their children of light is what I call them. Their son, their daughter, who is not have an earth body, they bring their sibling. And it's so
Mm-hmm.
obvious to me. And so far, I'm 100% accurate. So if I see them bring a girl or a boy, I'm like, oh, the sister's coming or the brother's coming. And they do. And I really trust that connection because that connection that those parents have with their children of light is so friggin' extraordinary. It really is.
Mm-hmm.
And I have the Afterlife of Spirit Baby group. And some of these stories, these women that are in my private group, they've shared just, I mean, things that would just be like, how is this possible? These messages, these children, literally, this one woman posted, like, her daughter, Elizabeth, her E, there was like literally in the sky, like clouds in the shape of an E, like how, you can't, these stories of like these experiences. And really, it's about parents knowing that they have that connection. As I said, the death space is right there and what they're doing in building that. And so that, there's so much to say about that, but just even in that group and these amazing, and again, these stories and how their children came to die is just really major. And, but they're like showing up to life, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're like, maybe they have an older child or they're in pregnancy and they're just terrified
Yeah.
and then they're birthing life and they're like, or some of them having going through miscarriage after a major loss is like, I mean, it's like, what do you do with that?
Yeah.
And but they're doing it and it is so different and there is going to be a lot of mysteries in the journey. And
Mm-hmm.
I do feel like if there's loss, miscarriage or stillbirth or even infancy loss, the having community support is going to be the biggest thing. Is like,
Mm-hmm.
where is your people? Because people run away, and I've heard it from many a women.
It's
People
sad.
don't know what to do with it, and these women need to be held and loved and honored for whatever that journey looks like. And I've seen extraordinary things of growth and development with people that are willing to go there, because there are some people that are too caught up in the dark,
Mm-hmm.
that are
That's
just
true.
held down, and they just don't go anywhere. I've heard that with, especially with termination.
Mm-hmm.
There was in one of the groups, it was like, oh, I've gone 30 years and every day is regret. And I'm going, whoa, deep breath. Whew,
Yeah.
that's like big. That's big to hold. Like,
Yeah.
but again, that's our culture too. It's how
Mm-hmm.
we look at reproductive rights. It's how we look at it. And if we didn't look at it that way collectively and steeped in religion, it would be completely different. But that's
Yeah.
just where it is. And
Yeah.
there is work to be done around compassion and heart for sure.
So I always had this feeling that when a mother has an urge to conceive, or couples, but usually a mother, because it's primal, that it's almost like she's being tapped on the shoulder by a spirit. So even if she does go through fertility challenges, there's something within her that's calling her, that's beyond this realm. Do you see that?
So you're saying that when someone has an urgency to become a mother, maybe it wasn't in their plan, or maybe they like don't know where to begin, or maybe they're
Or
in
just that
menopause.
urge, like I'm ready to have a family.
Yeah.
There's
So
that
I yeah,
calling. Yeah.
100% agree with you. The urge is the baby,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's what we don't talk about. But I go, this is no coincidence or accident or whatever we want to like do with it. It's like one day you may be like, I don't want children, and next day you're like, what is this urge, right?
Yeah.
And I felt that with my children because I wasn't sure if I was going to have children or not for a lot of reasons. And I was like, oh, what's this?
Yeah.
Hello. And it's like priming you, and what I like to call is awakening you. So it could be a long journey, it could be a short journey, it could be a
Mhm.
messy journey, it
Mhm.
could be intervention, it may not, it may come by surprise. And
Mhm.
so again, I do feel that to be really true. And I think that we need to like create a vocabulary around that, to
Mhm.
say that that's why you feel that, like make it a brand,
Yeah, yeah,
like
because when you
yeah,
name it, it makes it more real, and you know you feel it, which is
yeah.
why I could see it really being extremely frustrating and torturous almost to feel that urge and then not know how to do it if it's not working out, and you're struggling. And so, but I do think that if you do know that that is real, you feel less crazy. Like you know that what you're feeling is real, like it's something.
Well, and I also, just to, tag on that, is that this is why I teach a lot about women have to trust. They have to trust the journey. They have to trust the communication. And we have to, I almost feel like something that came to me even just a month ago. I feel like we've been fooled and tricked in our cultures
Mhm.
about what it means to connect to life before life. Like it doesn't
Mhm.
exist. Like how this is like powerful. There's a human life that grows in this very durable womb space and that goes through a lot. And then we're just going to pretend that we have no connection. I go, where's this amnesia? Who deleted this? I'm looking around going, who deleted this program?
Yeah.
It's so like, it almost feels evil and unavailable and dark and fearful.
Mhm.
We are these beings of light, and these other beings of light want to be a part of us in our bodies.
Mhm.
And where is this information? Why do we literally have to get back to like
Mhm.
remembering that we have a connection between worlds? And that's a lot of what my frequency emanates out,
Mhm.
even just for myself, but other people. It's
Mhm.
like, what is that? You're going to come in my space. Guess what? You're going to have spirit baby connection. I've had women say, here's my story, Kelly. And I'm like, okay, you just had communication. Oh, is that what it is? And I'm like, well, what are you expecting? Jesus to smash through the light and window and be like, hello? I'm like, what is the
Right.
expectation? It's like
Yeah.
the subtlety, like, in between worlds and energy, it gets very subtle, but it's very present. But
Mhm.
I said, that's why you can't be going, oh, very left brain, like, oh, you got to really prove it to me. Why? It's literally right there. And
Right.
you're just not even like, you're totally missing it, you're
Yeah.
ignoring it. And so a lot of what my energy really, again, I feel like putting out this bandwidth, the signal, listen to
Mhm.
the signal. It's, that you can do this, you are probably connecting with it, and that you're on this journey together. and you have to just drop in and let go to whatever the stuff is coming up, you know? So yeah, I agree with what you're saying. Absolutely.
It is something that I think a lot of people do have. I think that we've definitely like forgotten a lot of who we are. And we definitely, as a culture or whatever we're hearing, everything has to do with like science proving it to be real. But who can measure love? Like, so
Mm,
love we know exists, but can you look at it? Can you see it? Can you describe it? Can you measure it? No. But will you tell me because of that it doesn't exist? It exists. You know it exists. So there's so many other things that exist that we cannot dissect.
I love that you said that. That's like a great example. Yeah, it's true. And so anyone that's like really struggling or fighting against it, it's like, okay, only you could trust yourself. We can't, I can't make you trust yourself.
Hmm.
And that
Yeah.
comes with embodiment, that comes with self-care, that
Hmm.
comes with self-love, even in your shame, your fear, your anger. Yes, you have to have self-love in those emotions because our emotional chemistry, and I've spoke about this many times, it needs a voice and
Hmm.
we've suppressed so much.
Yeah.
And I've suffered a lot from that own suppression in my own reality. And I'm like, wow, look at this. It's literally physically hurting me, like in my body. And it's like, what is that? And where's the voice? Does it need movement? Does it need to be a wild woman? And I hate that word wild woman because it's almost like, oh, it's too wild or it's out there. But what if it's normal woman? Like
Hmm.
to have, because there's a reason why women, I feel like we sustain and hold so much energy overall because we literally are the doorways of life. And
Hmm.
so to have that emotional quality to be expressive with it. Look, I mean, I see so many women in my reality now that are diagnosed with breast cancer or uterine cancer. And I'm going, these very feminine, heart giving, compassionate centers of creation and life. And I'm like, it's more than just the environment. It's more than just the food. I'm like, this goes deep into their own
Yeah.
infancy, coming into the world with an emotional palette that doesn't get to be expressed. It's like the artist palette is just this white palette for year after year after year. And these women I know are just amazing, incredible women
Hmm.
that you're just kind of like, what's happening? And it's like, but again, that suppression and it begins really young. And maybe even that's why it's like I call it our own inner infant, which is here right now,
Hmm.
has a story and an expression too. And how do we get to love and nurture that part of ourselves on the journey into motherhood?
Totally. Oh, I could talk to you for hours, but
I know. I
we're
love talking
definitely
to you
yeah,
too.
it's so much fun.
Yeah.
Definitely like I don't even feel like we're recording anything. I'm just like having a
I know,
conversation
me
with
too.
you.
We're gonna have to stay in touch after.
I think so for sure. And
Yeah.
I actually would probably invite you back on because I just feel like there's so much more to
Yeah.
uncover when it comes to this world. And it's so real. It just hasn't been tapped and it hasn't been shown. And I just feel like there's almost a veil between the majority of society and like this other world. But this other world is us. It's not like this other
Yeah.
separate mysterious world. Like it really is right here.
Mm.
And again, coming back to claiming it and allowing yourself to claim it. But if people do want to work with you and reach out to you, how can they find you?
So the best way is through my website, which is spiritbabymedium.com, but also my email is spiritbabymedium@gmail.com. It's very easy. Or Instagram @spiritbabymedium.
Awesome.
I'm the original and
Can't miss
creator
it.
of the term spirit baby medium. So come back to that word and you will find me pretty much. Yes.
Awesome. Kelly, thank you so much for coming on today. This is awesome.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. I do feel like we could keep talking and talking about a lot of different things. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
So that concludes today's episode. You can find all of the links mentioned on the episode notes. If you're enjoying these episodes, please take a moment to share and leave a review. Reviews mean everything to podcasters, and I really enjoy hearing from my listeners. You can also find me on my website at www.thewholesomelotus.com or email me at info@thewholesomelotus.com. I love hearing from my listeners. If you're interested and want updates as well as a free ebook on my top 10 fertility boosting habits, you can visit my fertility page on www.thewholesomelotus.com. I thank you so much for listening in and hope that you have a beautiful day.